All right, we're back on the Young Turks post-game. Cenk and Jayar with you guys. Before I forget, Hayden Prescott had a great point on YouTube Super Chat. Listening to Tim Scott, he's like, Biden and Kamala Harris are going to bring us a socialist utopia. It's like, let's do this.
Totally.
It's like, thanks for letting me know, Tim Scott. I appreciate it. So guys, in the main coverage, I forgot to make the main point, which is if, like normally when I'm watching a convention, I get frustrated at the Republican conventions because I'm worried that people are going to believe their lies. Because they just say it so matter-of-factly. They're like, oh yes, we're for the little guy. That's why we gave a $2 trillion tax cut to the rich, because that really helps the non-rich. I don't know, they just say it, right? Or they'll just lie and they'll be like, oh, that was a $2 trillion middle class tax cut, right? So I get worried that people are gonna watch it and then be convinced, right? This one I was a little less worried, but now I'm on pins and needles to see what the country's about. Now, not everybody's gonna have watched this convention, of course, but if somebody's actually an independent, or if the whole country were to watch this, the DNC and the RNC, and so far obviously it's just been one night, but if they watched the first night of the RNC and they thought those are the guys for me, then we're all screwed, we're doomed, because this state did not do a good job of convincing anyone that isn't in their core base. Their core base is like, yeah, black people are the mob, we hate them. They better not come into the suburbs. I want to be able to point guns at them and drive them away and have the cops kick their ass, right? That's what this convention was. That's what tonight was. But if that's what a majority of the country thinks, oh boy. I'm not saying that the majority of the country didn't believe that for a long time. I'm afraid they did. And that's why Republicans won a lot of elections, because they would say the same thing. They just say it more subtle in the past. But now they're over the top, and I don't think it's the majority of the country. But if it turns out it is, boy, that'll be depressing. Because they didn't.
Yeah, I think they know that it's not the majority of the country. That's why there's extra stops being pulled out as far as the election with this mail-in stuff, which is completely opposite as to what they would normally want for voters to do, because Republicans more broadly vote by mail, as we've all talked about. So it's like they're pulling out every stop. Usually it's the fear mongering's usually there. It's we have to protect ourselves from foreigners. We have to protect ourselves from minorities, guns, tax breaks. The economy is awesome, even though it's not. All those things are normal pitches of the Republican convention. And then when they start going towards talking about how this country is rigged, the law enforcement sucks, except for the local law enforcement that you see attacking minorities at a higher degree. But our federal law enforcement, if as long as it's not William Barr, then it's the rest of them that's come after me. Like there's a litany of distrustful pitches and hatred towards the country and all institutions, except for the ones that, or even the ones that they control, they just say someone else controls it. That it's a little bit wild. It's like they know that they really have a smaller and smaller percentage of the American people, and now they just need to convince them that what they think is not real. I don't know how it's gonna work, but that's what's last. That's what's left. That's the last gasp.
And you remind me of something else, Jayar, that's really important, which is that there's very little talk of coronavirus. And so that is an implicit admission that Trump screwed it up royally. If they thought he had handled it well, they would have been like, Mr. Trump, thank you for what you did with coronavirus. Thank you, you are God's gift to us, Mr. Trump, right? And they didn't do any of that. They just had one video, and then almost none of the speakers mentioned it. So even they know, as my mom would say, they know. Okay, let me read the last couple of comments here. Daniel noticed the same thing we did in the beginning of the night. They're certainly maximizing their people of color representation tonight. Yeah, I mean, the good news is apparently even the Republicans think black people are gonna decide this election. That's great news. Yes, deal, we'll take it.
Yeah, along those lines, before we go to the next guy, I did notice this. I'm not sure if it was Tim Scott, no, did he do it? But nearly every black speaker tonight, or minority speaker, Nikki Haley did it too. They have to literally blatantly identify, hi, I'm Jayar Jackson. I'm a black person and I'm a Republican supporter. Like you have to say, and obviously I'm a person of color. Why do you have to say it? Like you have to say it just to make sure people know, oh, this is the guy that we need to use in our arguments against libs to say, that's my black friend, that's my Latino friend, that's my Indian friend. So like you're identifying as being the person to be used as the voice that allows you to continue to be racist or to say ridiculous things. Oh, but the black person in the party said this. He told me because he said he's black. Like we can see it, bro.
Yeah. No, it is funny and weird, and I noticed the same thing. Like it makes sense if I'm giving a speech at any convention and I say I'm Cenk Uygur, and you probably have no idea what that means, and I'm Turkish, because you got to clarify it, and even then they're like, what does that mean? Like because I could be Italian, I could be Persian, I could be Middle Eastern, I could be a lot of different things, right? Mm-hmm. But like Jayar doesn't have to say, I'm Jayar, I'm black. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. We can see, of course, right? So, but they all did it. They're like, now remember everybody, I'm black. Are a lot of people listening on the radio? Okay.
The Republican Party is very colorblind. You know, they don't see color. So apparently you have to identify yourself before you say anything.
No, but it really is telling, guys. If you think it's a small thing, at the Democratic convention, Jim Clyburn doesn't come out and go, "Hi, I'm Jim Clyburn, I'm black." Like we know, right?
Yeah. No, by the way, I will give you this. There have been speeches from progressives or even straight Democrats, black women that'll say, "I'm a strong black woman." Women say that all the time, or I'm a strong black man before you have a speech. That's not because we're trying to make sure to identify us as this black person that you can use for your racist statements. It's because we're saying before this, black folks, minorities in general, have to hide and not be proud of their identity, who they are, where they came from, because those things have been beaten down and told that they're shameful our entire lives. So it's a statement of who I am is who I am. I'm useful. I'm actually very needed. I'm needed in this country, by the way. Everything that happens here is because of my contributions. Don't write me off. Don't think I'm worthless, because I'm here and I'm no longer afraid to tell you that, because we've been beaten back so much that you have to be declarative about who you are. That's the reason for announcing yourself in some of these other circles. But the point of announcing that you're black, when we can see that, just to go in and start piggybacking on conservative lies, that's the whole point. I'm a black person piggybacking on conservative lies. That's the objective there.
So Laura writes in, Cenk, we need you to interrupt this like you did with the DNC. Can't listen to this without you. So guys, I wanted to clarify. We decided halfway through the DNC that we're gonna speak after the speeches, because bringing them up, down and us up, it's just too much of a technical. I don't want you to miss the speeches. I don't want to miss the speeches. But right afterwards, the minute the big speakers are done, we're jumping in and piling on. So don't worry, we're coming. Okay, and we're bringing hell with us. All right, Cousin Vinny writes in, Cenk and Jerry just had like 45 minutes straight of comments saying how much we didn't want to hear from hateful grifters. Please hear us when they say, when we say we want to hear you. So we appreciate it, brothers and sisters, but we got to hear the speeches, then talk to you guys. If we were there live, there's a way of doing it technically where we just jump in little pieces like we used to, but it's too hard in this context. If I bathe in a billionaire banker's tears says, it's not criminal to walk past the house, it's criminal to point a gun at people walking past the house. That's exactly right. All right. By the way, did you catch me drinking too strong coffee a little earlier? Oh, sorry. I didn't notice you there. TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. The mugs are back. Okay. You get the mug if you order 3 bags. All right. Rando plug there. Back to the RNC. So look, I keep saying that I want to talk about this lady. So this woman, Natalie Harp, gave us a speech about how she's a cancer patient who survived because Trump okayed some experimental treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what that experimental treatment is, and I haven't heard that story. She didn't clarify. I hope they didn't inject her lungs with bleach. But look, she survived, so that's great. I'm super happy to hear that. It was because of some experimental treatment that Trump rushed through. I hate to see the people who didn't survive that experimental treatment that was rushed through. So, okay. But her speech, one of the things that was, okay, but that's no problem. If she says it saved her life and it worked for her, well, it's cherry picking, but I can live with it. They're making the best case for themselves in a convention. But everything was so over the top. She, a lot similar to Charlie Kirk, was like, everyone's going to die if you like the Democrats. We're all going to die.
Can I give you one of the lines?
Yeah.
Democrats' healthcare plan is opioids and drugs. That I was like, I'm looking for at least a percentage of what maybe a Democrat said, and then they expanded on that and then went hyperbole on it. I really am missing where the Democrats' healthcare plan is opioids and drugs. Even the establishment, who's against Medicare for all, I don't know where the plan is mass opioids and drug use. When was that proposed?
Yeah, and then she went on to talk about how our lives are in danger, because every speech had to lead back to, remember, if you vote for Democrats, you'll die. Now, there's the great irony here is that they voted for Trump and 175,000 Americans died because of his epic incompetence on coronavirus. But they just can't help themselves. Danger, right? And then she talked about how all the doctors are going to vanish.
Yeah. I
don't know. Probably no one else saw this. It was a rando series on, I think USA that I got into, the 4,400. 4,400 people just randomly disappear, and then they come back to Earth after being with aliens or heaven or something. I forget what happened, right? What are all the doctors all of a sudden going to be the 4,400, and they're just going to disappear? What the? Yeah, like, this is all over the top nonsense.
I guarantee you, if I had this explosive account of doctors not being able to speak to anyone, I would give you details. I wouldn't say, and then you can't see a doctor. Moving on, you can't even talk to a doctor. Moving on. I'd go, did you know that you can't even talk to a doctor because they did this and they did that and they did the third thing? Why can't you give me more than just, and you won't be able to see a doctor? Moving on. What?
And by the way, also, all kittens will be gone. They'll be sucked up into the sky. Look, Jesus is coming, but only for the kittens to save them from the Democrats. So, so over the top. And I wonder, well, I don't wonder, I know it works on some people. And anybody who watches Fox News goes, oh, derp, yeah, totally, dude. Kittens, doctors, and that poor lady would have died, okay, if it was for the Democrats. But thank God Trump saved them all. And now Madeline has a more sophisticated point. She says, everyone feel lucky to have 2 Republican conventions, LOL. When I watched the DNC, I thought, yeah, these people are supposed to be for me. I don't think so. That's because you won't find a progressive point in either convention, right? The Democrats did Republican light and Republicans did Republican heavy.
Honestly, Cenk, this is the one thing that I can say the Democrats in their convention accidentally did to sabotage Republicans. They went first, so any attacks that they had on Trump or anyone else, Republicans can't help themselves, they have to respond. So that's why tonight was 98% filled with vitriol and hatred, because they're like, we can't let them say that about us. We have to defend Donald Trump. If we don't, he's gonna kick our ass. So in this case, they have to come through with so much over-the-top hatred because they felt that they were just attacked, that all they got is hatred, and it makes them look even worse. Number 2 is, since this establishment Democrats that are now up for nomination or up for presidency, they can't talk about all the establishment things that establishment Democrats do, because things that establishment Democrats do, Republicans like too. So they can't talk about how Biden is in favor or is against Medicare for all. They can't talk about how they went with the wars thing, which I think was, and you congratulate them for, but they're the same way. But all these establishment policies, they intermingle with both parties. There's a reason why they didn't attack Obama on the things he did that were very establishment. They can't, because they liked those things. So they have to make things up. But the where they get away with it is their supporters don't go, man, they just said something that I thought was explosive about what the Democrats do. Let me look that up. They don't look anything up. They don't read anything for themselves. They just believe it. That's where they have a little bit of an advantage. But in reality, all they can do is just throw hatred, because they can't criticize Biden for who he really is, because they like that.
Yeah, well, but look, I keep saying this, but that's the problem with the mainstream media. They're a wall of propaganda. And I was reading a Noam Chomsky quote today about how propaganda is to democracy what the bludgeon is to fascism. So the propaganda is the biggest tool that the powerful have in democracy. And so Ronna McDaniel, the head of the RNC, said, oh, the Democrats are trying to take away your private insurance. Well, they didn't vote for Medicare for all. They voted for Joe Biden, who said, I'm not going to do it even if it passes Congress. Not on my watch. Doesn't matter. They said he's for Medicare for all anyway. They said they're going to do things like defunding the police. Biden's like, I hate defunding the police. Yep. I want to give them more money. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter what Biden says. And every lying cable news anchor told you, if you pick Biden, they won't be able to say those things. And how many times do they say socialist, communist, and Marxist? About a dozen, at least, all throughout the different speeches. And so now let me get to who I thought was the best speaker, or the least offensive, and then my favorite line. For least offensive speaker at the RNC, the award goes to Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker had a speech where he's like, I've known Trump for a long time, which is true, because he owned the generals that Trump did. He partly owned them. And Herschel Walker, they did that huge deal to get Herschel Walker to go to the generals at the USFL when they did that league that competes with the NFL. That's part of the reason why Donald Trump is constantly talking crap about the NFL. Oh, John, they're terrible. You should watch hockey filled with white people. Okay, too late. Nobody's watching it except Michael Schur. Anyway, but Herschel Walker was like, I've known the guy for a long time. His family and my family went to Disneyland. I like him. He hasn't been mean to me. Like, oh, okay, that's fair. He didn't say anything else, so I was like, okay, that's your experience. I'm not denying that.
Yeah, he talked about how he treats these stories have been told before about how Donald Trump treats people in the service industry that are around him, like people at Mar-a-Lago. He treats them like their family. Yeah, trust me, if that same woman that's working in Mar-a-Lago, he sees her out in the streets, he doesn't give a damn about anything she has to do with it. By the way, doesn't give a damn about her life or her struggles when she's at Mar-a-Lago working for him. He just doesn't call her filthy names. He doesn't grope her. And then tell all of his friends about what a horrible human being she is. He says that for people that openly disagree with him, or just anytime he has any other fight with anyone else in the streets. If they're there to help him or serve him, he's nice to them. Like, that's not like a redeeming quality and characteristic for someone.
By the way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Number one, I'm not sure I believe Herschel. There's a revisionist history on Herschel Walker as we speak. Hold, I'm going to explain that in a second. But all these people who always brag about, like, Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Donald Trump, they don't spit on their waiters. Congratulations. Right? Is that a thing that happens all the time? Like, where are the rest of the Republicans like vicious to waiters and waitresses? Because most normal people are pretty nice to waiters and waitresses. Like, I don't know any liberals that go in and are like, you goddamn waiter, give me my food. Yeah, there's a couple of rude people in the world, but most people are nice to waiters and waitresses, right? Hostesses and stuff. So it's not like some giant redeeming quality that he wasn't like abhorrent to every single person he met. It's a very low bar. But now,
yeah, and then he showed up to Disney World with me and my family. So he decided not to shun you because you're too low life for him, even though you're a well-known legend yourself. But he actually came out with us. That means it's surprising that he actually did something with you because he's not repulsed by you long enough to hang out with you. That's great. I say, get away from me, you dirty black guy. But he actually hung out.
No, Jayar, that's such a great point because he's like, remember, Herschel Walker was taking his family and Trump's family to Disneyland, and none of them expected Trump to come, including his own family. And then, so the great story is, and then Donald Trump actually showed up for once to actually be with his family at Disneyland, and everybody was shocked. Not as good a story as you think it is. By the way, this is the guy who I thought was the best speaker at the RNC. But here comes the revisionist history. As I was telling you all that, some of the stories, I was like, I mean, I trust Herschel Walker. I believe when he says Donald Trump wasn't virulently racist at some random waitress, right? And I was like, wait a minute. You remember that old story about Herschel Walker? How he said he never lifted any weights and then he got this killer body by just doing push-ups and sit-ups?
Oh,
it's possible that Herschel Walker's been lying his whole life.
First we got Ben Carson, who learned, was it physics, or I don't know what he learned, by osmosis from Jesus. Yeah. And now Herschel Walker is like was at least an NFL specimen, a body like a god, because he did push-ups and sit-ups. By the way, push-ups and sit-ups do a lot. Let's not discount that. But I don't know if he's gonna get what he got.
I always wondered how he got those biceps from push-ups and sit-ups. Anyway, okay, but kidding aside, seriously, Herschel Walker's speech was fine. I know the guy, and he's been nice to me. Okay, fair enough. And probably the most redeeming thing we heard about Trump. It was amusing, but totally fine. Then there was every other speech, which is like, watch out for black people like Herschel Walker coming to the suburbs. All right, one last thing. We're about to run out of time. I said my favorite moment. So the favorite moment was the McCloskeys. I hated every part of their speech. Worst, most hateful, racist speech I've seen at a convention. But when they were like, and then their leader of this mob, a Marxist revolutionary, won the congressional seat in the first history. I'm like, oh my God, he's talking about Cori Bush. And then, she's a nurse and a pastor. Okay, and then we were so worried for our lives with this black Marxist in front of our house. So we grabbed our guns to make sure that nurse didn't get us. And then, but they did say she apparently chanted or led the chant of "You can't stop the revolution." I was like, that actually sounds great. I wish I was there.
That whole story, and talking about behind the scenes, if that story was told at the DNC, where they said, and then Cori Bush was a part of the protesters after this protest and this murderous, systematic killing of black folks in our streets, she's now going to become an elected representative in Missouri. Like both Jake and I were like, yes, that's like a line for the DNC, isn't it? If the DNC actually cared about progressives.
Yeah, no, and by the way, Jared, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's true, we were not on camera at the time, and we were like, but what's telling is that the DNC did not celebrate Cori Bush, and both her specifically, but also her symbolically. There was no Jamal Bowman, there was no Cori Bush, there were no Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. There was a pre-recorded 1 minute of AOC, and that's it, right? So Bernie and Warren spoke, but they were obviously huge presidential contenders. Of course, they were going to speak. But in terms of young progressives or new progressives who are looking to actually end corruption and clean up our government and get us healthcare and higher wages and stuff like that, the Democrats were like, ironically gave him the Heisman. We were just talking about Herschel Walker, right?
Right.
And and didn't want anything to do with them. But at the Republican convention, they made it seem like those folks were leading the Democratic Party.
Right.
Cori Bush, the Marxist revolutionary who's taken over the Democratic Party and is now apparently in charge of it. I don't think Joe Biden or anyone in Democratic leadership got the memo. By the way, neither did Lacey Clay, the person she beat. He got the memo just a little late on election day. But that's so telling of the Democratic Party, who does not embrace their base. And then the Republicans pretend that the progressive base is actually they lie about the progressive base being Marxist and taking over the country and taking away all doctors and other absurd things they said tonight, and then pretend that they're actually running the party. None of their lies are true, but that part we wish were true, that we were running the country, but we still got a way to go. As you can tell, because we barely showed up at the Democratic convention, let alone running the party. Yeah, absolutely. You'll know we're running the party when I give a speech at the DNC.
So you mean never?
Yeah, I'm going to be the Kimberly Guilfoyle of the Democratic convention. Washington on! I might actually take off my shoe. All right, we're out of town. We love you guys. Jayar, you're awesome. Thanks for doing it tonight. Asher and Brandon, thanks for producing and directing. You guys are great. You members make everything possible. We love you. So lots of coverage tomorrow and Wednesday. I'll be back on Thursday and can't wait to see the Trump speech. If you thought all this was hateful, wait till you get a load of Trump.
Game 2 of the 4-game series on the road continues tomorrow.
That's right. All right, guys. Much love. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.